Hi, my name is Jacob Freers, and this is an intro to aid climbing video. Over the last 4 years, I've been taking in information and perspective on different approaches to getting started in aid climbing, and I found a lot of good information out there on more intermediate and advanced techniques, but I want to make this video in order to show you kind of how to get started with the bare bones equipment. In this video, we're going to go over why you would learn to aid climb, exactly what equipment you'll need to aid climb, as well as basic technique. We'll start with a basic setup of gear, which is also the least expensive in order to be the most cost effective. This is just a short introduction to the topic of aid climbing. It's just designed to get you started. Just like all other areas of climbing, this is going to take loads of practice and time just to get used to it and get used to the movement. So make sure you continue your education after just watching this video. There's lots of reasons why you might want to aid climb. I'm just going to go over 4 of the bigger ones. First would be if you're interested in big wall climbing. If you're interested in doing any sort of big wall and you're not a 513 climber, you're probably going to have to do at least a little bit of aid climbing. With that big walling, there's a concept called as free as can be, which is the idea of free climbing as much as possible and then breaking out the aid climbing when you absolutely have to. It's a really cool approach to big wall climbing, and being a good aid climber will make the free climbing that much more fun. This other main area would be a rescue scenario, or if you were stuck halfway up a route. Knowing how to aid climb has definitely saved me a lot of time and hassle and energy and possible injury before by being able to aid up to the top of a pitch that I couldn't get all the way through, maybe because a storm was blowing in or an area of the route was wet. That's helped a ton. And then the last main area would be if you wanted to set up a top rope on a project you were working on. Maybe you're not quite strong enough to get all the way through it free climbing yet, but if you know how to aid climb and you can just quickly go up it on some ladders, you'll be able to set up that top rope and get to projecting. Now we'll go over the things you need to get you started aid climbing. We want to use mostly items and equipment you already have, with maybe just a couple additional items before you buy in all the way. So the first thing you'll need is a bolted route, preferably with the bolts as close together as possible. Then you'll need a harness, helmet, quick draws, rope, which is stuff you should already have. And then you will need a couple of additional items. The first thing you'll need is a Fifi hook, which you can get from Black Diamond or Petzl. They're all called Fifi hooks, and you'll want one of those for aid climbing. You also want an extra quick draw for high stepping, which is something we'll go over in a little bit. And then the last 2 things you'll need is a set of aid ladders. You'll want 2 ladders. They come in multiple different styles. I suggest getting the true ladder form, not the H-ray, because this is going to be the simplest to learn on. I'm going to go over an even more budget-friendly version of this equipment. So still all that normal climbing equipment from before, but as far as a Fifi hook, you could just use a spare carabiner attached to your belay loop. And then again, just an extra quick draw. And then if you didn't want to spend the money right away on ladders, you could get 14 feet of 1-inch webbing and tie them with offset loops to where you have kind of a makeshift ladder. So you could tie 2 of these and that would take the place of an aid ladder.
Let's go over real quick how we're going to actually attach these items to our harness. Your ladders are just going to be by themselves. We don't need to worry about attaching them to us with daisy chains yet. That's something you'll do once you get more comfortable with the motion. It's more things to manage, so let's just leave those free hanging for now. I like to clip them on the front side of my gear loops. For your Fifi hook, you can girth hitch it through your belay loop. You can do your tie-in points. It's a little more uncomfortable, but it does get you a little closer to the piece if that's what you prefer. Then I like to have my high step quick draw just directly underneath my Fifi tether, and you can see that it's about a carabiner length longer to give me that extra reach on a high step.
We're going to go over something real quick called bounce testing. There's really 3 steps to bounce testing. You want to do first just a simple heel drop kind of foot kick on your piece, and then you do a more intermediate bounce test where you're putting more of your body weight onto the piece, and then finally you would do a full bounce test as needed. Here you can see we placed our piece and clipped my ladder to the highest point on it, and then I'm going to put my foot into one of the steps, give it a small kind of foot drop bounce test to where I'm looking at the piece, seeing if it shifts, seeing if it moves, but not looking so close to where if it bounces out, it's going to hit me in the face. It's a very delicate dance that you will find out if you do it right or wrong. And so doing that first couple of tests and then moving on to that second set where you're putting more of your body weight onto it, and then you're like, okay, this feels good. It's not moving around, it's not wiggling, and then finally doing a full body weight bounce test. And you want to do that so you know when you're stepping onto your piece, you're stepping onto it with full confidence and it's not going to blow out of the wall unexpectedly.
Now we're going to go over the basic upward progression while you're aid climbing. This again is going over the simplest way to do it. All we have is our normal climbing equipment plus a fifi hook and 2 ladders. So this is it stripped down to its simplest form in order for you to learn the basics. So first thing I'm going to do is get up nice and high in my ladder. I'm then going to find my next piece. This one is a bolt. And so I can use my hands to balance, or if there's a crack, I can kind of like I'm crack climbing. Just really whatever makes you feel the most balanced and even. Here I have 2 options. I could clip a quick draw first and then clip my ladder to it. Or I could just, if I wanted a little bit of extra space, maybe I know my next one's also a higher piece up, higher in my reach, I could wait on the quick draw. I could get here and I could just clip my ladder straight to it. There's a time and place for both. We can go over that at the next one as well, what it would look like if I clip my quick draw to it first. So here, I've clipped my next piece. I'm now going to want to bounce test it. So because it's a bolt, I don't really need to do all 3 progressions of the bounce test. So I'll probably give it a good foot kick and then maybe a second bounce with more of my body weight. Now I can transfer my body weight onto this new one, onto my new piece. And I'm just using my arms for balance. Almost all my weight is in my left foot here. Now I can reach down to my previous piece, take my ladder off, put it back on my harness, and now I can take my rope and clip myself in. You want to wait to clip yourself in for 2 main reasons. One is so you're not getting all tangled up with your ladders and the rope, and then 2 is you don't want to introduce more slack into the system than you need in order to minimize the fall. So now I'm going to climb up in my ladders as high as I can. When I get to a point where I feel like I need to fifi in, I'm going to put that on the spine of my carabiner. I don't want to put that on the gate side because it has the chance of opening the gate while I'm walking up. As I'm walking up, this fifi will slide up the spine, which is why we want it on the back side, not the gate side. Okay, now we're going to step up as high as we can in our ladders. And I'm going to get up as high as I can. Okay, I can reach my next piece. On this one, I'm going to take my draw, put my draw in first. Then I'm going to take my ladder and clip it to the highest point on my draw. If this was a cam, we would want to be clipping to the highest point on whatever piece you're placing. So that might be the thumb loop on the cam. That could be the top carabiner of your quick draw. It really just depends what piece you're planning on going up on. So I'm here, I'm clipped into my top carabiner. I put my foot in my ladder. I give it a small bounce test, and it's a bolt, and I trust it. So now I transfer my weight over onto this new ladder, and now I'm putting the majority of my weight on my leg. My arm is just for balance. Take off my old ladder, clip in a quick draw on the piece below, and then clip it in. Now I'm going to climb up as high as I can in my ladder. You don't have to always clip in with your fifi. A lot of times on lower angle terrain, you can get just as high without clipping in with your fifi. It's really just if you're kind of falling backwards or leaning backwards or need that extra bit of support is when you would want to hook into the spine of your carabiner. I am going to go ahead and show you how to do a high step. And so that is that extra quick draw that we had on our belay loop. We're going to learn how to use that real quick. You would use a high step if you were either on overhung or slab terrain and you want it to get a bit higher, you want to get into this very top step of your aider. You're not always doing that. You're doing it when it makes sense, or if you can't reach the next bolt or the next crack, or you want to get as high as you possibly can. You don't want to place too low. You normally want the piece at your waist or below before you place your next piece. That way you're getting as much rock covered as possible per placement. So with the high step, I'm going to walk up with my aiders like normal. I've reached the top of my spine of my carabiner with my fifi, and I can't reach what I need to reach yet. I need to go a little bit higher, and I need to get into this top step. So what I'll do is I'll take this quick draw, hook it on to that piece below my fifi, and then I will slowly and gently unweight my fifi and lean back on the quick draw. So now I can come up, and I have enough space to get up into this highest step of my ladder. And so now I can reach, another foot higher. So that's going to allow me to get as much out of each placement as possible. But that's kind of just the progression. Flipping your ladder, walking up as high as you can in your ladder, fifi in if you need to, and then you would place your next piece, clip your ladder into that, bounce test, weight transfer, clip your old piece, and repeat.
Okay, so that's just a small introduction to the basics of aid climbing. Again, there's so much information out there. Two of the places that I would specifically go, and we'll have these linked below, is Higher Education, which is a book by Andy Kirkpatrick, which is basically the book for big wall climbing, and there's entire chunks of that book about aid climbing. The next place I would go would be the Big Wall Bible, which is on the How Not To YouTube channel. Ryan Jinks runs that channel, and he does an incredible job producing stuff for the climbing and adventure sports community. One last reminder that all of this stuff takes a ton of time to get good at and to get efficient at, and you just need to be patient with yourself, be patient with your partners, and allow yourself time to grow, and make sure you're putting in a lot of time on the actual wall practicing these techniques.